mysterious woman crashes through an unstable portal, naked, confused, and carrying a warning that could stop an intergalactic war. A lone human technician discovers she wasn't meant to survive the jump, and now both are thrust into a deadly conspiracy that threatens every world in the Alliance. In 30 seconds, their bond will begin. In 24 hours, they must uncover the traitors, save the galaxy, and rewrite the future, together. This isn't just science fiction. This is the story of how chaos forged a love strong enough to change the stars. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move toward this wonderful story. Jonas Rail didn't believe in bad luck, but the portal room was certainly testing his patience. He stood alone in the silent chamber, lit only by the blue pulse of the interstellar gateway. The humming sound of the machine had become as familiar to him as his own heartbeat. He ran a hand through his unkempt brown hair, his technician's uniform already stained from hours of recalibration work. The day had started like any other, with system checks and AI updates, but something about the portal felt off. He couldn't quite explain it. It was like the machine was holding its breath. He glanced at the control panel again. Everything looked fine, at least on the surface. The diagnostics reported normal energy levels. The stabilization protocols were running, and the AI assured him the system was nominal. Yet Jonas couldn't shake the feeling that something unexpected was coming. He leaned in to adjust the resonance settings, muttering under his breath about engineers always being blamed when things went wrong. Just as he reached for the harmonic tuner, the portal flared, not in a smooth, calculated activation, but with a violent burst of energy. Startled, Jonas staggered back. Sparks leapt from the console as the room filled with a blinding light. The AI's voice crackled and stuttered before falling silent altogether. The hum changed pitch, now deeper, erratic. Then came the silence, thick and heavy. Jonas squinted at the gateway, heart racing. The energy field inside the portal shimmered with an unnatural hue, flickering from blue to violet and back again. Then she appeared. The woman collapsed onto the floor, as if pushed by an invisible force. She was completely naked, her skin covered in a fine mist that glowed faintly under the portal's light. Long, silvery hair clung to her back and shoulders, and strange patterns shimmered across her arms, almost like tattoos, but alive, pulsing gently with energy. Jonas blinked, frozen in place. She raised her head slowly, eyes wide with confusion. They were bright, almost too bright, an intense silver blue that seemed to see straight through him. I wasn't supposed to land here, she whispered, her voice soft but clear, filled with disbelief and embarrassment. She glanced down at herself and a blush crept over her face. Instinctively, she tried to cover herself, her hands shaking. Jonas, suddenly aware of his own staring, turned around and yanked off the towel draped over his shoulder, the one he used to wipe sweat during long repair shifts. "Here," he said, tossing it blindly behind him. "Take it. I'm not looking. I swear." There was a long pause. He heard the rustling of the towel and then her voice again, more composed this time. "Thank you." A moment later she added, "It's not your fault. Something went wrong with the matter conversion protocols. I wasn't meant to come through like this." Jonas turned around slowly. She had wrapped the towel around herself as best she could. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Her face was still flushed, but her eyes had sharpened. She looked more alert now, more focused. "I'm Jonas," he said, still trying not to look directly at her. "I'm the technician on shift. You are definitely not the ambassador I was expecting." "No," she said, brushing damp hair out of her face. "I'm Kira, Security Division, Viren Corps. I wasn't supposed to come through at all. Someone forced me into the portal before I could send a warning." Jonas frowned. "Warning? About what?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "There's a plan to sabotage the diplomatic summit. The portal you've been working on, it's the target. I found the altered coordinates just before they sent me through. I think someone didn't want me to speak." The control panel behind Jonas beeped, drawing his attention. He glanced at it and saw something that made his blood run cold. There were indeed altered destination markers embedded deep within the data, lines of code he hadn't seen earlier. Someone had tampered with the portal from the inside. His stomach twisted. If Kira hadn't shown up, he never would have noticed. Jonas looked at her, now more curious than embarrassed. She might have arrived in the most awkward way possible, but her presence might have just saved lives. "You're telling me someone's trying to crash the Peace Summit?" Kira nodded. "And they're planning to use this portal to do it." Jonas rubbed his jaw, thoughts racing. "All right, then we stop them." Kira's expression shifted, surprise softening her face. "Just like that?" He nodded. "Look, I fix machines, not politics. But if someone's using my portal to hurt people, I'm not standing by. You've got intel, I've got access, seems like we make a decent team." She gave him a small, grateful smile. "I hope you're right. Because if we fail, this isn't just a failed summit. It's war." Jonas exhaled slowly, then turned to the console, his fingers already flying across the keys. Whatever was coming, he knew one thing for sure. His quiet life as a background tech was over. Something far bigger had just stepped through the portal, and her name was Kira. Jonas didn't sleep that night. His mind raced with what Kira had told him, and the code he found confirmed it. Someone had tampered with the portal's destination settings. It wasn't just a glitch. It was sabotage. And now, every time he looked at the shimmering gateway, he didn't see technology. He saw danger. The next morning, the diplomatic center buzzed with excitement. The summit was only 2 days away, and officials from across the galaxy were already arriving. Smiles, handshakes, and polite speeches filled the halls. But behind those smiles, Jonas saw cracks. He saw too many security clearances passed without checks. Too many technicians with unfamiliar faces near sensitive equipment. He didn't want to be paranoid, but after what he'd learned from Kira, he knew better than to trust appearances. Kira, now dressed in a borrowed technician's uniform, moved through the building like she belonged. Her posture was straight, her eyes always scanning. Though she still looked otherworldly, her glowing tattoos had dimmed but not disappeared. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew how to survive. Jonas had given her access to the systems he managed, trusting her instinct as much as her story. Together, they began quietly digging. They reviewed logs, searched access trails, and checked subroutines that hadn't been touched in weeks. That's when they found it, a string of encrypted commands buried deep in the portal's core software. The code didn't come from Earth. It was written in an alien structure Jonas hadn't seen before, and it was far more advanced than standard diplomatic protocols. "What is it?" he asked, leaning over Kira's shoulder as she examined the strange lines of text. "Fail-safes," she replied, but twisted. These commands could override portal destinations remotely. They could redirect someone mid-transit, send them to another planet, or even trap them between dimensions. Jonas stared at the screen. So someone could kill a diplomat just by changing their coordinates. Or make it look like an accident. Kira added quietly. No body, no evidence. Just gone. They sat in silence for a moment. The weight of what they were discovering settled between them. Jonas had joined the portal team because he believed in the alliance, because he believed in cooperation between worlds. But now that alliance was on the edge of being destroyed from the inside. They needed help, but the question was, who could they trust? Captain Miles Terran, head of Earth's Security Division, had a reputation for being fair, but stern. Kira suggested reaching out to him, but Jonas hesitated. What if he's involved? He was part of the original diplomatic initiative, she said. I worked with him once, years ago. He's smart, careful, and loyal. Jonas nodded slowly. Then we'll try. They set up a meeting under the radar, using an old maintenance room far from the main command center. Jonas sent the message through a hidden channel that only senior tech officers used. They waited there in silence, surrounded by dusty storage, crates and flickering lights. Miles arrived 20 minutes later, wearing a dark uniform and a look that said he didn't appreciate being pulled from his schedule. But when Kira stepped out of the shadows, his expression changed. You're supposed to be on Varen, he said sharply. What the hell are you doing here? I was forced through the portal, she answered, stepping forward. Someone tried to silence me before I could warn Earth about the sabotage. Miles stared at her for a long time, then turned to Jonas. And you believe her? Jonas swallowed. I do. I saw the code myself. She's telling the truth. Miles sighed and rubbed his forehead. All right, show me what you found. They pulled up the encrypted files and walked him through everything. The altered protocols, the foreign code, and the evidence of remote access. Miles said little as he listened, but his expression grew darker with each revelation. When they finished, he looked at them both. You're right, this is bigger than I thought, he paused. And more dangerous. Jonas felt a mix of relief and dread. So what now? Miles shook his head. Now I try to find out how deep this goes. But if I start asking the wrong questions, I might tip them off. Kira stepped forward. Then let us do it. We're not on the official security roster. No one knows I'm here, and Jonas has access to every portal system on this base. Miles hesitated, then nodded. All right, but if either of you gets caught, I can't protect you. Jonas looked at Kira. We'll manage. They left the meeting more determined than ever. Time was running out. The summit was fast approaching, and the enemy, whoever they were, was getting bolder. Later that evening, as Jonas walked alone through the nearly empty corridor outside the control center, his communicator buzzed. A message from an unknown source had been sent to his private channel. No words. Just a short video clip. He opened it. The footage showed Kira being dragged by two masked figures through a hallway, struggling. Then one of them pressed something on a control pad, and the portal flared to life. They shoved her through it before disappearing. The video ended. Jonas's heart pounded. It wasn't just a warning. It was a message. We know what you're doing. He deleted the file, crushed the communicator, and ran back toward Kira. There was no turning back now. Someone was watching. Someone powerful. And they were willing to do anything to stop the truth from coming out. The gala shimmered like a dream, but beneath the surface it pulsed with danger. Jonas adjusted the collar of his formal suit for the third time as the lift brought him and Kira up to the grand entrance. He'd never worn anything this sharp before, but somehow the outfit wasn't the most uncomfortable part of the night. That honor went to the identity chip inside his chest pocket, the one naming him as Jonas Thorne, human consort to Kira Solon, Varen noble and cultural advisor. It felt surreal. Kira, beside him, moved like she had done this 100 times. She wore a flowing gown that shimmered with every step, its color shifting subtly with the light. It was unmistakably Varen, beautiful, strange, and impossible to ignore. Her silver hair had been braided into a regal style, and the glowing patterns on her arms pulsed gently, synchronized with her heartbeat. She leaned slightly toward Jonas, close enough that their shoulders touched. Stay calm, she whispered. They're watching everything, movement, expression, even our body language. I'm trying, Jonas muttered back, attempting a smile that didn't feel like a grimace. But pretending to be your consort is harder than it looks, Kira smirked. Then just be yourself. Apparently, that's what got you into this mess in the first place. The lift doors opened, revealing a massive hall of glass and gold where ambassadors, nobles, and high-ranking officials gathered in a swirl of color and conversation. A live orchestra played music Jonas didn't recognize, but it soothed the air like a calming spell. Their entrance was announced by an attendant with a soft voice and a long memory. Lady Kira Solon of House Solon, and her companion, Jonas Thorne. The attention turned to them for just a second, long enough for a few eyes to linger. Then the room returned to its buzz. Kira led Jonas toward the center of the gathering, her hand resting lightly on his arm, her posture poised and confident. Inside, everything felt slower. Jonas could see the small details. People nodding at each other with too much familiarity. Whispered conversations ending too quickly when approached. Security officers pretending to be guests but standing with military. Stillness. Something was off, and both he and Kira could feel it. Their goal was simple and terrifying: identify who was behind the sabotage and stop them before the portal sequence activated. But the enemy was careful. They would not reveal themselves easily. Kira leaned toward Jonas again, this time her lips barely moving. Look by the fountain. That's Rennick Vile. He oversees portal logistics on the Varen side. Jonas followed her gaze. The man by the fountain was older, with dark robes and sharp features. He looked like a man who kept secrets. Think he's involved? Maybe. He's too powerful not to be suspicious, Kira said. But he's also too obvious. I think someone is using him to distract from the real threat. As they mingled, Jonas found himself surprisingly in sync with Kira. Every time she glanced at a guest, Jonas was already scanning the same person. Every time she paused, he did too. It was like their minds were slowly lining up, one thought sliding into another. They weren't just pretending anymore. Somewhere along the way, their connection had become real. Later, during a quiet moment near a holographic sculpture, Kira took his hand. It was part of their disguise, but the touch lingered. Something's happening, she said softly. I don't mean the mission. I mean, between us. Jonas looked at her, surprised by her honesty. But she was right. The closeness they'd built during the last 2 days through panic, danger, and planning was more than just teamwork. I feel it too, he admitted. Just then, his earpiece buzzed, subtle but sharp. It was Sari, his old friend in the tech division who had promised to keep an eye on the portal logs during the gala. Her voice was urgent and hushed. Jonas, someone just entered the control room for the Nexus portal. It's not on the schedule. They used ambassador-level clearance. I can't see who it is, but the activation timer just dropped to 20 minutes. Jonas's chest tightened. The treaty's not supposed to be signed for 2 hours. They're accelerating it, Sari said, and someone's overridden the failsafes. Jonas ended the call and looked at Kira. It's happening, we have to move. They slipped out of the gala unnoticed in the chaos of arriving guests. The back corridors of the Nexus station were quiet, almost too quiet. Kira walked ahead, now guiding Jonas with confidence. She knew this layout better than he did, having been trained in similar facilities across her galaxy. As they neared the control hub, the lights flickered, a sign that the portal was starting to destabilize. Jonas pulled up his portable data pad and tapped into the system. What he saw made his heart drop. The sabotage code was active, not just running, but accelerating. We're out of time, he said. If we don't stop this now, the whole portal system could collapse. Then we do it now, Kira said, drawing a stun device from her gown's hidden compartment. No more running. Let's end this. Jonas smiled grimly. After you, Lady Solon. As they stepped through the last door and into the heart of the conspiracy, their hands were still joined. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The control room was chaos. Red lights pulsed along the walls, and the sharp tone of emergency warnings echoed through the air. Technicians shouted over one another, fingers flying across consoles as the portal's energy readings climbed higher and higher. In the center of the room, the Nexus portal shimmered violently, its calm blue core now swirling with unstable purple light. The sabotage code was in full effect, and unless someone stopped it, the entire network could collapse in less than 10 minutes. Jonas and Kira burst through the side entrance, their breath catching from the sprint down the back corridors. At the far end of the chamber, a tall figure in a black uniform stood hunched over the central controls. They didn't notice the newcomers at first, not until Kira shouted, "Step away from the panel." The saboteur turned slowly, revealing a face both of them recognized. Minister Talon, an advisor from Earth's diplomatic council. Jonas had seen him at nearly every summit prep meeting, always calm, always cooperative. But now there was something in his eyes, something cold and determined. "It's too late," Talon said, voice steady. "The portal will collapse, and when it does, the treaty will fall apart with it. We'll go back to the way things should be, separate, safe." "You'll kill hundreds," Jonas said, stepping forward. "This isn't protection, it's destruction." "They won't die," Not all of them, Talon replied, tapping a sequence on the screen. Just enough to send a message. Peace built on fear doesn't last. Kira raised her stun device. We're not letting you finish this. Before Talon could respond, she fired. The shot hit him square in the chest and he dropped instantly, unconscious. The room paused for a heartbeat, then erupted again as technicians scrambled to contain the unstable energy. Jonas leapt to the control console and scanned the live data. We've got 6 minutes, the system's locked down. We need to disconnect the core power manually. Kira joined him, reading the screens with sharp eyes. You'd have to go into the portal field itself, it's risky. Yeah, well, saving the world usually is, Jonas said, trying to keep his tone light even as fear gripped his stomach. Kira looked at him, and something in her expression shifted. There's something I need to tell you, before you do. Anything. Now? Jonas asked, blinking. Yes, she said, stepping closer. This bond we've formed, it's real, and it's changed me in ways I didn't expect. She took a breath. I'm pregnant. Jonas froze. For a moment, the alarms faded into the background. He stared at her, stunned. You're sure? Kira nodded. My species can sense it almost immediately. I didn't want to believe it at first, but I'm sure. A strange warmth filled Jonas's chest. A child. Theirs. In the middle of this, madness, a spark of new life. He reached for her hand and held it tightly. Then we have even more reason to stop this. She looked like she wanted to argue, but instead she nodded. You'll need to time the entry with the harmonic shift. You have 2.4 seconds to disconnect the power and jump back. If you don't get the timing right... I'll get it right, Jonas said, already moving toward the chamber. Kira's voice followed him. I'll guide you from the console. And Jonas, come back to me. He gave her a quick, crooked smile. Wouldn't miss it. As the countdown ticked lower, Jonas stepped into the swirling light of the portal. The energy pressed against his skin like static, and he could feel the hum of the dimensional field all around him. Ahead, glowing deep violet, was the power coupling. His hands moved quickly, trained by years of repairs, but this was no routine maintenance. Now! Kira's voice rang in his earpiece. He reached for the release, twisting the core with all his strength. The moment it came free, the entire portal shuddered. The energy turned from violet to white, then imploded, pulling inward with a roar of wind and light. Then silence. Jonas tumbled backward, thrown clear of the portal's frame as it snapped out of existence. He hit the floor hard, groaning. Around him, the room slowly returned to normal. The red lights faded. The portal was dark. The threat had passed. Kira was the first at his side. You did it. He sat up slowly, wincing, then realized something and chuckled. Why does saving the world always end with me losing my clothes? Kira laughed, tears forming in her eyes. You've made it a tradition now. Later, in the quiet that followed, the chaos, Jonas and Kira stood on the observation deck. Below them, Earth spun gently in space. The summit had been delayed but not cancelled. Thanks to their actions, the treaty would be signed after all, with stronger terms and deeper trust. Word had spread quickly. A human and a Viren had saved the day. Together, ambassadors from both worlds had offered thanks. Even Talon, now in custody, had muttered something that almost sounded like regret. But Jonas didn't care about any of that right now. He looked at Kira. So, what do we call a baby born of two worlds? She smiled softly. Hope. As they stood there, watching the stars beyond the glass, the portal behind them powered back up. This time stable, secure, and ready to connect worlds, not divide them. A new future had begun, one born from chaos but shaped by courage, trust, and an unexpected love that had grown stronger than any sabotage.